In this tutorial, we will be building out the main components of Fictionwell's water distribution system, the manholes and the pipes, also known as junction and links in the modeling world. So normally we have some sort of database that hold the information of a water utilities network. So with some GIS manipulation, we can create a feature file of the water distribution system. With this feature file, we can import the data as a layer in the modeling software, which we can use as a backdrop to draw out our model elements manually. We can also use these data to build up our model automatically. We will look at both of these approaches. This skill of building out your model is important even though you have an existing model. This is because we need to maintain our model due to the changes that our system has over time, but also when we want to model measures or scenarios for our system. We will start off by learning how to draw out our network manually. As an aid in drawing the model elements that will represent our manholes and pipes, we can import these data into our canvas area here. So we go to the layer symbol. We go to the layers and symbol here, and then we can click on add layer. And here we see that the data source is feature file. You can use a geodatabase and BIM file as well. And we just have to navigate to where our data is. So I'm just going to start with the manholes here. And now I'm going to press OK here. And you see the layer come up in the layer tree here. So I'm just going to right click and zoom to layer and see all of these dots. And before we move on, I'm just going to do the same for the pipes. And a neat thing in this software is that we can change the symbology and add labels. So I want to have the elevation label field shown, and I click apply to map when I have made my adjustments. So now we can see that the elevation for each manhole or junction is shown here. And I'm going to do probably the same for the pipes. It's nice to see the dimension when we are drawing out our network. So how it is done in this software? The principles are the same, but the buttons are different for each software. So here we go to water distribution network and we go to the target layer. And let's say we want to start building out our junctions. Then I just have to make the junctions highlighted here. And then I can create, clicking on this one, and I can just place out my junctions. So this is how I would have done it manually. Just place them out. I'm not going to do everything here because I'm just going to show the functionality. And then when the junctions are placed out, we can go back to our setup here. And this is a pretty neat thing. You see under the network tab here, we have the junctions. So if I click on this, I come into the editor for our junctions. And when there's a red cross, it means that information that we need to have in order to run a model is missing. And as we can see here, it's only the elevation that is critical in order to run a model. So I see that I have my elevations here. So the way I do it manually when I'm gonna put the elevation information in the manholes is that I use this identify tool, which we will be using a lot in this course. So just remember where it is. It's this circle with an eye inside of it. So with this highlighted, we can click on our drawn junctions, and I'm gonna this is from the layer that we imported, so it's not a model element, but the junctions is a junction element or a model element. So when I click on this one, you see that this property and result explorer shows the properties of the junction, which is highlighted here. And I can just set the elevation for this directly here. So I'm going to type 75 for this one, because the label tells me this is the information I'm going to put in here. So if I move back to my junction editor here, we can see that 75 has been put for this junction. And I can do the same for this one, 90, and this one, 95. And yeah, for good measures, this one, 100. So this is how we do it. And if you have coordinates for your manuals and you're going to draw them manually, you can just put the X and Y coordinates here. Paste them in, and then you will get your exact location. Moving on, for the pipes, you just have to make this highlighted. We press on the create, and when we hover over a manhole, you see that it becomes a bigger circle there, meaning that we are snapping to the manhole. So I'm clicking once, and I'm trying to follow the curvature here. And then on the manhole I want to end on, I'm going to double click. Then my link is drawn. And I can continue here if I want. Double click again. But if I want to escape, I just press escape. And then I can start over again if I'm going another direction or another place in the model. For example, here to here, double click. So this is how you do it. The same thing when we are going to put in information. We see the diameter here in millimeters. So I identify it. I click on the diameter field and I press 125. And another component that is, or an input parameter that is important, is the roughness. So I'm just gonna stick with 5 for now. It's a little bit, conservative maybe, but it's a starting point. So we're just gonna stick with 5 for our uncalibrated model. And this is basically how we would do it. Just go through all our elements, give the diameter. This one is 300. And the same for the roughness. But since I know that we are going to have the same roughness for every pipe, I can show another trick, which most modeling software has. So normally we would have more rows, but I'm not going to draw everything out in this video. But if we have a lot of rows and we're going to fill everything with the same value, or do some calculations that determines what value should be here, we can use something that is called a field calculator. And this one is really useful. So get used to using this one. So we right click on the roughness column here, click on field calculator, and I'm not going to do any crazy expressions. I'm just going to set the number 5, which will be for every element in this editor. And when I click OK, everything will be filled out. So this is very handy. You can use it for everything, for the elevation, for the flow coefficients. Normally don't use many of these parameters, but you can use it to set values for any column in your editors. So this is how we do it manually. I'm gonna move on to how we do it automatically. So I'm just gonna undo everything, actually. See how we got. So everything is undone, I'm gonna also remove these layers because we don't need them. We're gonna use them actually to create our model elements. So we go to, in order to do this, we need to go to the tools section and import and export. And we just have to create a job. So I'm first going to create a job to import the manholes. And I have a shapefile for my dataset here. So I'm going to leave this to shapefile. I'm going to click on the 3 dots here in order to set the source file. And I have to navigate to my data. And so I have to navigate to my data, and mine is under GIS data here, and I click the manhole shapefile layer here. When this is added, we have said to the software, this is our data that we can work with. Then we need to insert a section for what we want to extract from this data set. So I'm just going to call this also a manholes. Because we're using a shapefile, normally we just have one element type. So for the source, I'm gonna choose the manholes because this particular shapefile only has features of the manhole type. And then for the target, I have to find what Mike, in this case, has for what the manholes or junction are called in the Mike software. And this is called MW_junction. So this means that my GIS manhole elements from my shapefile will be targeted or linked to the junctions in the model. So with this in order, we can just click AutoMap to get a starting points for the attributes from our shapefile that we want to give our model elements. As we see, the geometry is automatically mapped, and we need to map the diameter. I mean the elevation. So this is the elevation from the shapefile, meaning the values for the elevation for the manholes from the shapefile. So we need to link it with the name that the Mike software has said or given the elevation for the manholes. And in this particular software, it is just called elev for short for elevation. So now we have linked these. And the neat thing about this tool is that we can click on this verify to see is everything in order. And when I click on this, we see that just a little bit delay. When I click on it, we see that we have an error. So I can click on it and look at what is the error. So there's some warning because there's no assignment, then they will be ignored. And for me, that is okay for now. But it says in the error section that we need to have a specific or unique ID for the elements. And the ID column or ID name in the Mike software is called MUID. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I see in my dataset, the ID of the manhole is called ID. And then I just need to link it with MUID so that my model elements get the ID from my shapefile. If I click verify again, I just see that there's some warnings. I'm fine with that. Then we can run. Happened fairly quickly, but now we can see that. Every manhole or junction is taken from the shapefile and put in the model as a model element. So when I click on this identify tool on my manholes, I can see that the elevation is 90. So data has been given. And we also see that when we go into the editor for the junctions, we see that they have gotten an ID, which is shown in this column. And the elevation is filled out. So you can imagine building models using this tool makes it really easy. So the same can be done for the pipes, and with some snapping, they can be attached to each other, because when we look at pipes, you see that we need to have a from node and to node. And when we use this methodology, this import-export tool, we can just snap to the nearest manhole. Very neat, very handy functionality there. So that's it for this video. We were just gonna build out the manholes and the pipes and show how it is done. So in the next video, we will look at how we model pressure reducing valves. So stay tuned for that video, and I'll see you there. Have a good day.